Welcome back, everybody. This is JW. This is the RAFON Report on YouTube. RAFON, Rise and Fall of Nations. We are dismantling the beast one piece at a time. And again, in addition to being here on YouTube, you can find us on Facebook. We've got a group and a page over there. I still have not figured out Patreon, so please bear with me there. We're also on Twitter. Again, don't forget to stop by the RAFONreport.com. That is our website again, RAFONreport.com. Presently have, I think it's 30 articles on the website. This is, I believe, podcast number 7. I'm not positive about that one. So what's going to be our subject this week? Well, it's going to be another RAFON rant. Let me ask you something. You ever had stage fright? See, that's one of the little battles that I'm working here. Trying to piece these things together, flowing along with the way information is absorbed on the average today. I'm used to doing podcasts or even debates, that take hours. Even when I did a lot of my Blog Talk Radio podcast years ago, I think I've got something like 5 different series over there. And one of them was 7 different parts, and each one of those are 2 hours. Well, I just sat here and stared at the wall and talked. I don't usually keep a lot of notes. I don't use a teleprompter or anything like that. But I am sitting in my living room. And for a better part of the day, my lovely wife is sitting right across from me. So it's kind of like stage fright. I don't really necessarily want to do this, and not having a studio audience to do it in front of. Well, you got to reach down within myself here and find that person that used to exist when he got in front of a microphone and you couldn't shut him up. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. What's our subject going to be about today? Well, it's a little complex, but we're going to start out with this woman right here, Ilhan Omar, one of our freshman congresswomen out of the 5th District in Minnesota. This woman is a danger. This woman is an absolute threat to the United States. Not just her, and the threat that she represents exists without her. But her presence, let's just say the inflammatory remarks that she is constantly throwing out, whether it be in Twitter or interviews or outside a recent CARE meeting that she attended, I believe it was somewhere in California, where she told the Muslims it was time to rise up. Islam is a huge problem in this world, and it is a problem that needs to be faced. It needs to be addressed. It needs to be recognized. Islam is not a religion. Islam is a political ideology, a globalist political ideology masked in religion. Call it a theocracy if that makes you feel better, but do you really want America run as a theocracy? I don't. I wouldn't care if it was Jewish, Muslim, or Christian. I don't want a theocracy. I do believe our leaders that do have faith in God should follow their own moral convictions. But again, when it is more politically motivated than it is spiritual, then we need to look around. Again, this is Ilhan Omar, one of the newest members of in our Congress, and she's not the first Muslim in Congress. She kind of followed back beyond Keith Ellison, which, I'll show a little slide of him later, but she is a House representative from Minnesota. This is her being sworn in. I'm not sure if this is when she was originally being sworn into office or maybe if she's being sworn onto one of the committees that she's been placed on. And I find that absolutely abysmal as well. Muslims have no business anywhere in our intelligence business or foreign affairs because they're there to manipulate them, of course, in the favor of Islam. This woman is known to have stated so many things that we couldn't possibly go over every single one of them here on a podcast, so I'm not even going to try. But I did take a little umbrage with one of her recent ones in saying, oh, Jesus wasn't a Jew, he was a Palestinian. Wrong answer. The area that became known as Palestine wasn't even called Palestine for approximately 100 years after Jesus died. Okay, this was the land of Canaan, this was the land of Galilee, this was the land of Samaria, but it was not called Palestine at that time. So we need to get that out there. And Jesus was a Jew. He was from the tribe of Judah. He was from the house of Judah, which is the southern kingdom of those two entities. But again, this is simply Islam leaking out of her lips. That's all this is. It's just Islam just oozing out of her because they hate Jews. They hate Christians. They hate anybody that's not a Muslim. And even within Islam, the vast majority of what people call the peaceful, the tolerant Muslim, well, they're normal Islam's number one target. They are Islam's number one target. They are seen as infidels, blasphemers, apostates. And that's one of the reasons why we have so much interwar within Islam. This woman is a puppet, but she is a voluntary puppet. She is there of her own will and volition every bit as much as she is serving her controllers. I saw where she recently had she attended some faith meeting. And if you look at the pictures that came out of that meeting, faith meeting, every single member there was Muslim. There was nobody there that was not Muslim. You know, trying to brush it off in the news, it was just a faith meeting. You know, it was a bunch of ministers gathering together and she was there. No, there's all kinds of plotting going on there. But again, this is one of the issues that I run into with trying to do these podcasts on such a short stint the way that it is normally absorbed in today's world, because I'm used to doing things in depth. I'm used to going back through history because so many things are interconnected, interwoven, underpinning, overlapping, and it's kind of hard to keep your focus going on one single stream when there's just so many tributaries that it breaks off into. And of course, here, what we see in this picture is kind of changing of the guard, if you will. Of course, we have Miss Nazi Pelosi, the House Speaker. She's just on her way out, you know. She's part of the old bunch. And Miss Ilhan Omar here, well, she represents the new bunch that's coming in. I personally don't believe this woman will be reelected in her district, but we'll see how that pans out as time goes on. But again, this woman is all about Islam, and that is her primary motivation, her primary factor, her primary thinking in everything that she does involved with government. Prior to getting into the United States Congress, this woman graduated, I think it was, I want to say North Dakota State University. I'm not positive on that. But she graduated with a Bachelor in Political Science and International Studies. Really strangely, her first job out of college is a campaign manager for a woman who went on to Minnesota State Senate, I believe it was. Might have been a House representative, so I'm not sure either way. And then her very next job after that was a campaign manager for a city council member for the city of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And she went on to be that person's top aide for 2 years after that. And in those 2 years, she herself either crafted or co-sponsored over 200 bills. And you're going to find this anywhere you see Muslims moving into our offices of power throughout the country. Here she is with another wonderful member of our freshman class, which is Mrs. AOC, and we've talked about her before, and she's going to come up again. And then, of course, here we have her with Miss Linda Sarsour, Many of you recognize her from Copernic fame. She was there helping push that along for quite a while. Now it's kind of a fade out background here is what I really want you to look at, and that's Mr. Bernie Sanders. Of course, they may have some difference in their religious ideology, but they're two birds of a feather in many ways in the taking down or reconstruction of America. Here we have another one of the freshman class, and just so happens to be another Muslim, Miss Rashida Tlaib. I believe she's out of Utah. Don't quote me on that. Here's one of the things that she was known for. Americans have spent decades raping and pillaging my people. What comes around goes around. See, this is the way these people really feel about America. A country that welcomed them in, or I believe this one may have been born here. I'm not positive on that. But they're in our Congress. But they're here in many ways to chop America down and reduce it into Islam, bring it within the Islamic world. But she quickly deleted this one. And here she is. I don't remember what year this was from, but she's in one of those $15 an hour rallies, and she had to be so belligerent that she wound up getting arrested. This is probably where she got noticed. I remember it was 1992, 1993, and 1995. Anybody remember these guys, the triplets? It was 3 out of 4 years the Dallas Cowboys won the Super Bowl. What they represented in all of that, of course, we have the commercial aspect and all of that, but they represented so many things that are positive. You know, here's what they look like today. But this isn't about the Dallas Cowboys or about Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman, or Michael Irvin. It's about these 3 clowns and about something much bigger, but there's other things, as I said, are interwoven, underpinning, overlapping, because here on the left we have Miss Omar, an angry Muslim. She hates Jews, she hates Christians, she hates patriotism, she hates everything pro-America. In the middle, we have Big Mouth AOC. Personally, I think she should go back to bartending. I don't believe she'll be reelected either. This woman has been a sore disappointment even to her own district in the short time that she's been in office, even though she's already a millionaire now. Isn't that nice? She's been in office less than 1 year and she's a millionaire. And then on the right, we have Miss Rashida Tlaib. But when I look at these 3, I don't really think of anything near those triplets with those, Dallas Cowboys. I think more along the lines of the 3 Stooges. Now, that doesn't mean that they're just funny and, innocuous. No, these are things to worry about. But again, in so many ways, they remind me of the 3 Stooges just because, they're knuckleheads. They're clowns. They're performing before the camera. They're performing before the microphone. They're doing as their controllers tell them to do, and they're pandering to their constituents. Islam doesn't always present itself like this with the suicide bomber. It's just a picture and a stereotype that has become familiar within news media. Look at this, the good old burqa. And trust me when I tell you, this is not an exaggeration. This happens all over the world all the time. Men dressing up in burqas to commit crimes. Look at this guy here. He used his burqa to lure an 11-year-old boy who he raped and strangled to death. Islam, it's a disease. And it's a disease that needs to be eradicated from the planet. And I'm not talking about killing all Muslims, but they're Muslims. And at the end of the day, they're Muslims. They have a global agenda. They're not here to be friendly. They're not here to assimilate. They don't always look like this. Again, this is just another stereotype pimped out in the news. We have these Saudi Arabian sheiks, or whatever they may be, but you just notice here, if you pay attention to the picture, that's actually a scene behind them. It's like a picture on the wall or something. They're not actually standing in front of the water anywhere. But again, this is just a stereotype that many people look at. This is another stereotype that people look at. But again, they don't always come to us looking like this. Sometimes they look like this. American civil rights leader Malcolm X. Sometimes they look like this guy, Louis Farrakhan, the leader of the Nation of Islam. Kind of different from traditional Islam, but it's still Islam. Sometimes there are movie actors. Sometimes there are sports heroes. Sometimes there even are comedians. But even though if you look back at just these few examples that I've given, oh my goodness, they're all black. Well, guess what? Not all Muslims are black. Not even the majority of Muslims are black. But they use different ways to melt into a society. So, in addition to being the movie stars, the sports heroes, here we have Miss Ilhan Omar herself getting a cameo in a Maroon 5 video. Oh, look at, she's cool, she's hip, she's with it. And I'm glad I never listened to these guys. Again, they're not all black. Muslims are not all black. Here you have some nice-looking Hispanic ladies that happen to be Muslim. Here you have some Asian ladies who happen to be Muslim. Asian men who are Muslim. You even have white Muslims. We have white Muslims all over the United States. Look at that. There's a cute-looking couple. They're somewhere in Arkansas. This was our Congress's introduction to Islam, and that's Mr. Keith Ellison, again out of Minnesota, just like Miss Ilhan Omar. He was the first Muslim in Congress. He was there for, I think, 6 years, if I have it remembered correctly. He was there for 6 years. Now he's the Attorney General for the state of Minnesota. So they're all over the country, and they are getting into offices of power, places and positions of power. I was listening to something the other day. It was at some Muslim meeting, and a guy was congratulating his fellow Muslims that within the last 2 elections, Muslims have now taken almost 200 positions of power around the country. One of the things I find interesting about that is these people are tracking every single one. They're tracking every single one. They want to know whenever a Muslim gets into any position or position or power, and they want to know. Isn't that amazing? Can we tell how many people right now? Is there somebody out there keeping track of how many people in Congress are Christians, or how many people in secular government around the country are even Christians, Buddhists, Hindu? No, I don't think so. I don't think the statistics would be hard to put together, but I don't think there's people actively working out there to do just that. Again, Miss Ilhan Omar here is a Muslim first. And don't let that fabric behind her fool you, because that fabric around her neck and over her head means more to her than Old Glory sitting there behind her. Again, this woman right here, she comes from this crap hole. Now, I don't know how recent this picture is, but this is the refugee camp that she lived in for a few years before coming to the United States. This is a place where she said she felt more included because everybody looked the same, walked the same, talked the same, ate the same. It was very odd for her to feel a different cultural uneasiness at 12 years old when she came to the United States. So you want to be around people, you only want to be around people that look like you, walk like you, act like you, talk like you, eat like you, think like you. That's a robot. That's a slave. That's not the culture that she moved into. That is not the culture that she is representing in our United States Congress. But again, she's only one. She's only a symptom. She is only a symptom of a greater threat. And make no mistake about it, Islam is an absolute threat to the United States. And it is here to take over. I personally prefer this picture of her, and I'd truly like to imagine that at some day again in the future, she's going to be donning another one of these jumpsuits. This is when she was arrested. There was some important Somali figures that were staying at some hotel out in Minnesota, and Miss Ilhan Omar here was somehow involved. There were a bunch of people that were there. They were flooding the lobby of this hotel. They were not guests of the hotel, and they wouldn't leave on their own. And so they called the police through a little pushing and shoving and her talking about, "Don't touch me, don't grab my arm." Well, they were all escorted out of the lobby, and yet just a few minutes later, she was discovered in the lobby again, sitting down on a chair, so she finally got her fanny arrested. Again, as you can tell by the smirk on her face, she wasn't worried about being arrested or having a record or going to jail. This just made her a bigger martyr. I find it difficult just to do these short things because I'm used to going into such detail and history with some of these things. So I hope y'all will kind of work with me here as I'm trying to figure all this stuff out in regards to podcasts. Again, this is JW. This is the RAFON Report on YouTube. Again, if you do like what you're hearing, we need to know about it. So like, share, subscribe, comment on the videos. Hit that notification bell. And also, go over to the website, rafonreport.com. Sign up as a contributor. You can take part in the blogs, or you can even become a writer for us. So, we're probably going to be doing another rant here pretty soon. I'm just not really sure who my target's going to be. We'll see you then. God bless you. God bless America.